Hi, welcome to the Elle Russ Show, where I deliver content intended to inspire, educate, and motivate. Engage with me online at elleruss.com and on social media. Enjoy the show. Hey everyone, today, one of my favorite guests, Ginny Gane. For over a decade, she has been helping women leverage the law of attraction to become the most powerful and authentic version of themselves so they can align with their truest purpose and experience a life of wild love and freedom. She's also the author of The Champion Mindset, Access Your Power to Create, Leveraging the Law of Attraction. Her website is ginnygane.com. That's GINNYGANE.com. Hi, Ginny.
Hi, Elle Russ in the house.
Yeah, I'm so excited. We've had some great conversations over the years. And as I tell everyone, and I told when I interviewed Cassie, which is your show Manifest It Now, a podcast, which is over 300 episodes and now is moving into seasons. So right now there aren't any new episodes and won't be until the beginning of the year, but is one of my favorite podcasts. And I listen to very few. And I think I've been a religious listener since the beginning.
We are so honored for that. We love that.
So much fun, that show. It's so great. Check it out. Check out the past episodes. Especially if you're new to the law of attraction, this is your amazing, like, just pot of gold right there. Let's get into, I don't want to go too much into the basics because I think people listening already have an idea of the law of attraction, but how would you elevator pitch law of attraction to someone that asked you in an elevator and was like, what's the law of attraction about? And you have a few floors to go. So you're not in the John Hancock building.
I do actually really love still talking about this, even with my clients. It comes up every once in a while, like in our groups and things, because just a refresher of like, oh yeah, that's what it means. It's not just about positive thinking. Oh yeah. So the way I describe law of attraction is there's a universal law, like the law of gravity, that's applies to everything, all the energy in our universe, all the vibrations in our universe. And that law of attraction is constantly aligning vibrations of similar frequency. So that's the law. How we use it is by understanding. So we as human beings are in every moment radiating this energy of a certain frequency out into the world. And so how we leverage this law that's already in place is by understanding what we're communicating to the outside world with our vibration, with our frequency, with our energy, so that we can teach the law of attraction or let the law of attraction know what we would like back so it can match the things that we want.
Yeah, become a vibrational match to those experiences, things that we desire. We'll get into some nitty-gritty details here in a second, but let's just go through the 3 steps that are in your book. Clearly defining what you want, clarifying the feeling, and alignment. So let's start off with clearly defining what you want.
One of our favorite, Cassie and I talk about this all the time, but what do you really want? And the most important part of this part of the equation, this part of the process, is the identifying the emotion. So we always want something because of how we think it's going to make us feel. No, every single time, whether it's money, whether it's a relationship, whether it's more space, whether it's a new location or anything, there's always some element because we want it because we think it's going to make us happier or give us some feeling in a certain way. So if we can just skip the middleman of the thing and go for the feeling, it's like, what do you really want? Then we get to go to our most powerful place for manifesting and identify that.
Right. So if someone were like, well, I want $1 million, and you're like, yeah, but why? Well, so I could be rich. Like, yeah, but why? What are you going to do with the money? It's the things and what you're going to do with that money that are the end, right? That's what you want. Like, well, I want to be able to host big dinner parties, or I want to swim in my own pool, or right. Then you go for that, not the number.
Yes. And then how do those things make you feel? What do you think that's going to bring to your life? How does it feel to host dinner parties and then the magic's in that answer.
And then the third one is alignment. So how do those go together?
Oh yeah, I totally grouped 1 and 2. So the third one is just aligning with it. So once you know the feeling of it, you can start to activate that feeling in your life. So say it is money, I want $1 million. And then, okay, that's number one. Number two, how does it feel? It feels really free and fun. Okay, so number three, aligning with that feeling is about, there's an unlimited number of ways you can align with that feeling. But for some examples, you can find things in your life now that activate that feeling within you. So I think this is I want to go a little bit deeper into this one, because one of the most powerful ways, like ultimately in manifesting, we don't want to be reliant upon conditions to feel a certain way. The whole idea is to feel and then attract a condition, right? And so, but at the beginning, it is very powerful to start looking for something that makes you feel free, and then go be in that energy, go take that action or think that thought or anything that activates that feeling within you. Eventually, you can get to the place where you don't need conditions to be a certain way so that you can feel free. And then, the universe is responding to your vibration, to your feeling of freedom inside you. And you will attract so many different things that are a match to that feeling of freedom.
And speaking of feelings that are important with connection to LOA, would be gratitude. Can you talk about gratitude's connection with LOA and why that's essential?
Yeah, well, I love the word appreciation. Actually, instead of gratitude, it doesn't matter, but I talk about it in my book, The Difference. And you don't need to get too caught up on the words, but appreciation is really about like the why of the thing. So say we're grateful for the sun, and you say, well, why? Well, it feels so nourishing and it feels warm. And so when we ask why we're grateful for something, we really get into the experience of what we're being grateful for. And that's when you really connect, right? You connect to the feeling and you activate the emotion. And so being in this place of appreciation, you're really connected to the emotions that you're wanting to attract more of.
What about so for example, someone is in a job that they can stand. They really want another job. And
no one wants that, Elle.
Yeah, that's this crappy place to be. So they're in a really crappy job. They're complaining about it all the time. And they're almost afraid that if they start to be appreciative for anything about that current job, that somehow the universe is going to make a mistake and keep them in their crappy job. Do you know what I mean? And you're like, no. You should probably find something you can appreciate about what you have now, versus, right? So then that would be such a too much of a contradictory, incongruent situation. If you're trying to manifest this job you love that you feel good in, and it doesn't mean you have to feel amazing and fake it at your crappy job and pretend like you like it, but there's got to be some element there, right? And maybe appreciating what that offers, even if you can only point out to like one thing, like free coffee every morning, like, or whatever.
Oh man, that's one of the biggest things that actually, like, one of the limiting things that gets in the way of manifesting something more is not being willing to be okay where you are. There is this total misconception, false conception out there that if we make peace, if we feel good where we are, we won't get more or we won't expand.
Right.
And just think about how crazy that is. Like, I mean, maybe it's not crazy, but everything in life is in constant motion. Everything is always expanding, always growing. When we come back to that very basic principle that we are all energy in motion. Energy is in motion. No part of us, even though we're seeing things as still and solid, at their core, they're all moving. It's all like really tiny vibrating little things. Everything's always in motion. And so expansion and growth are core to our lives as humans and animals and nature. You see it everywhere. And so that's the natural state. And what happens is we humans just get in the way. We think we know what's best, and we try to control the path, and we try to manage the path and direct the path and the expanding, and we actually get in the way of it. So when we're willing to, and when I say make peace or feel good with what is, it means energetically you want to have a vibration going on that is allowing. So we are always in one of two vibrations. This is a general way to say this, where we are in an allowing place or we're in a resisting place. And your allowing place is your best place to manifest from. So I like to use the analogy, and this comes from Abraham Hicks, but of paddling upstream. So when you imagine yourself in a boat, you're pointed upstream and you're paddling against the current, that is similar. That's the feeling of resistance. You're going against the grain, right? And when we stop paddling, and our boat will naturally start to go downstream, turn downstream, that's the feeling of allowing. And so, and everything we want in our life exists downstream from where we are. So our only job, our only goal is to be in this allowing place, and things will come so much easier to us. And so when we come back to the topic we're talking about, feeling, is it okay to be okay where I am? Can I accept where I am? You can not only accept, it's essential for you to accept where you are in order for you to easily manifest the next step, the next part of the path, the expansion. You will never miss what's meant for you, and you'll never stay still if you're in a place of allowing.
Love that.
I just get so going, Elle. You got me going.
Yeah. Hey, roll it out. Keep going. I love it. No, it's really, really interesting. Also, let's talk a little bit about that resistance and pushing harder. Was chatting with Cassie and even Peggy McCall on that, in this sort of nuance of in looking for it. Where is it? I put it out there. Maybe I need to do more, or maybe I'll add to it, right? Trying, pushing, worried about the hows, versus just being a receiver and having faith. When you have faith, you don't need to go look for it because you're confident it's going to show up.
Yeah. And I think the tricky thing about this is we don't just jump into, I have all the faith in the world. Right. It is something, especially in manifesting, we need to gradually choose to step into and choose to open to more and more and more. A few weeks ago, I was just on an Abraham Hicks Alaskan cruise. I had an amazing time. It was a dream come true. And there was 4 different workshops that Abraham talked about. And if any of the listeners aren't sure, Abraham Hicks is a law of attraction teacher out in the world. And the most, maybe not the most, the biggest kind of theme I took away from these workshops and the week on the cruise was just that it is not as hard as we make it out to be. No,
it's actually easy if you're non-resistant or in faith and believe it, and then not incongruent completely with, right? You can't really probably be quickly successful with manifesting something, or let's say it's money, if you're complaining about how broke you are every second and crying about it, right? That's out of alignment. It's not in the vibration of someone who is on their way to manifest that. And when have no resistance, it comes in quite quickly.
Yeah, that's the key. So this theme, and just always remembering it's easier. Even me, I've been practicing this for a long time, and there's still so much room for me to make it easier, to get out of the freaking way. But it's exactly right, Elle. When you have a pure positive thought, meaning there's no resistance, it doesn't mean it's a positive thought. It means there's no resistance in that thought. So you have a desire and you're no limiting beliefs, no resistance anywhere. That's when things manifest physically right away, because the universe responds immediately to a pure open thought. Our problem is just we've lived so much life, and we have, without knowing, adopted all of these limiting beliefs about how things work and the way things go and what's possible and what's not possible. And those are all swirling around, giving you this lens so that when you have a desire, it's almost like those limiting beliefs immediately add resistance. It's like we can't even have 1 millisecond of a pure desire because we're so the limiting beliefs are just in there so much.
Yeah,
Really
limiting
blows us
beliefs like I can't do this, or this doesn't work, or it's not here yet.
So the
Or
biggest,
just
like one of the biggest, I have to work hard to get this.
yes.
Speaking of like what we're talking about, this is hard. I have to sacrifice. I get my value from working hard and pushing and trying. There is like, I don't know if I've ever really met someone or been close to someone who truly, really believes life can be easy. That
I'll tell you who it is right there, Mark Allen. But he
Okay.
manifested millions and millions of dollars. He publishes all of Eckhart Tolle's books. I mentioned him on Cassie's podcast because the reason I like him is he wrote a book called Type Z, The Lazy Person's Guide to Manifesting Abundance. And even in the book, he's like, hey, if you're too lazy to read this, like just read the bolded parts. He is
I remember you mentioned.
He's the laziest guy on planet Earth. I probably shared the episode with you because I was like, you guys have to see this guy.
Yes,
He's really the lazy. And I love it because he's really the true example of you don't have to be type A at all. It just shows up. You get inspired through getting aligned. Something happens. And next thing you know, or you don't even have to take action and it shows up. And he has always talked about Catherine Ponders in an easy and relaxed manner, in a healthy and positive way, right? But in an easy and relaxed manner. And I loved it. I'm in one of his, I just kind of check in on his Magical Path course a year where he has like 2 things a month. And I love jumping in just because for me, I like to be reminded because he's almost like such just pure receiver in the law of attraction. And I am type A and I am high energy in a lot of ways, but I'm also type Z. And so I like that. He's almost the reminder to get me off the train, of being in the how, or getting that ego and human brain involved where you're doing and you forget. And then a couple weeks go by and you're like, have I really put any intention on like getting aligned, like being in a vibration, And so he's sort of that reminder for me. But other than him, I really have not met any really master manifestors who really are like super, super lazy. Yeah.
Yeah. Lazy. I love it. It's such a, has such a stigma around it. And it's actually really powerful for manifesting. I remember hearing when I first was getting into this stuff about procrastination and how that's actually a positive thing because it means you're not in alignment yet. And I'm like, amazing. I'm a master at this.
Yeah. Or you know what? Even Abraham said once, I love this, was saying, if you have to go to the beach every day because that's what puts you in the right vibrational, mood and alignment, then that's your work. Where someone would go, well, you're just wasting your life away, spending the next 3 days just going to the beach. You should be doing this. You should be doing that. This, what do you think? You know what I mean? Like, you shouldn't be sitting around. And I love that Abraham said that. It was like, no, go to the beach. That's exactly where you go. Like giving permission for that.
That's my life experience is the times in my life when I am doing, I guess I'd say not trying the least. So having the most fun and enjoying my life the most have been, I felt the best. And there are times where things have been like falling into place. It hasn't been anything major, that came in at those times, but the path unfolded kind of to those major things. And so, and then what happened, an old pattern with me was I'd be like, oh, this is like too easy. I'm like, cause I still had that old belief playing of like, I need to work to have all this success. And so I would start working and then it would slow down. It's like every time. Where every time it works like that. And especially when I was starting my business, was so inspired. And I included alignment time. I still do that. My alignment time is my part of my work day. Like that's the first thing I do.
Right.
And that does change from day to day. But I think that's been one of the most valuable things is in terms of my business success is making alignment a part of my work day.
And I was just thinking, I was like, I haven't really had to work in like 20 something years, really. And
that's amazing.
And all that I really do now that people consider work, I love. And I love that when people ask me, I'm like, everything I do is fun. And it's true. I don't say it to try to imprint it, although if you're not having fun, that might be a good affirmation. But yeah, I mean, I really do. So, and I know you do as well. And it's so fun. And like you said, studying this a long time, but you keep refining and understanding, and then there might be a dip and there's things to learn. And it's really not boring at all, right? You know, it's these steps because they're so unique. Let me talk about, or I want to hear about, people feel they have to be specific, right, about something really specific. So then they'll change their mind, right? Like, so maybe, and let's just take like, okay, you want a new car, but then like, you're like, okay, I want this Range Rover. And then like you see another car, this new model, and you're like, oh no, wait, hold on, wait, I got it wrong. They're going to get it wrong. I need to change the order. And then maybe, or whatever, you want a kitchen island. And now wait, hold on. And so how about it's just sort of like the universe will bring you the perfect kitchen island or the perfect car for you, or perhaps one better than you can imagine, being open. But people get tripped up in the specificity of the situation. And then, then they're constantly, right? So how do you get someone out of that? Because that mindset also has some resistance wrapped in it, and not faith that it will come and be the right one for you. One that you might not even know or can think about yet. That's been my experience. Things have showed up better than I could have scripted it myself, which gives me faith in it, which is why I trust it.
Yeah, totally. Well, I operate under the concept that we kind of have two parts to ourselves. So we have our mind, our egoic self, and then we have our intelligence and our intuition coming from this like non-physical part of us. And so when we are using our mind to try to decide what we want and think about how specific it should be, our mind doesn't have access to as much information as does our soul or divine intelligence, non-physical energy. So what happens is if we try to get too specific with our mind, we actually limit what we can let in. And so I really guide and encourage people to go as general as possible when they're starting to define what it is they want and the experience they want. And then when you get steady, so say, just like we talked about at the beginning, we want money. Okay, so we want freedom. So if we just get steady in the vibration of freedom, the universe will deliver the specifics. And so it can get more and more specific. Versus if we try to define it with our mind, then we add resistance because it's just coming from a limited perspective. That's all. And so does that make sense, Elle?
Yeah, no, I love it.
Yeah. And so there is a place for getting specific, and how you know if specific is going to serve you is if you can be really specific and feel excited, then go for it.
Right. And if somehow being specific dampers that vibrational, alignment, then it's out. It's out.
Yes.
You got to go broad.
So what happens is the more specific you are, the more opportunity there is for resistance. So you have to pay attention. And this is why sometimes a law of attraction or consciously manifesting gets tricky, is because there is not one formula. It is all based on you and your path and your journey. And you have to pay attention to where you are. You have to have an awareness. So you might feel great one day about the red convertible that you want in 2 weeks. And the next day you might feel doubt. And so that is not the time to be specific. That's the time to go into the experience of driving a dream car. So it can change. It's not, I can be specific or I can't be specific. It is all based on where you are emotionally at that time.
Let's talk about action versus no action. So, just on the topic of being lazy, it doesn't mean that you don't do anything. It just means it can be easy and relaxed. Like, I can't have a podcast without ever, without ever putting the mic into recording it and like signing up for Lipson and, putting it out there, right? But it's inspired action. And I think what's true though, is, and I do believe, even if you want to be as lazy as you want about this, as long as you're in vibrational alignment and belief and really feeling the feelings and doing that work, something's going to show up. An idea, a spark, an idea to call someone that leads to something that you just don't know. But you will get inspired to actually step up in some way, maybe, or it just shows up. But if there's any action that could happen, and I think that that's such a trip up because people, they put it out there and then they're in the house, they're trying to manifest, which are words that don't go together.
I know, it's really funny. Well, we're a very action-oriented society, world, humanity. That's what we're taught. That's what we've evolved from. And action was always very important. And we can get what we want. We can get what we want, and we can manifest what we want through controlling action. That's one path. That's the traditional path. That's also the hard work path. Because when you are only tuned into the action or the doing part of it, you're missing what's fueling the action. If you're not paying attention to the energy that's going into the action, you're missing 90% of the game, you know? And so that's what makes the difference. And there's just so much power in doing a little work on the energy before you jump into the action. That's where you're going to get your leverage in the action. I want to see if I can let me give a sports example of, say, if you have, of course, say you're playing baseball and you have to hit the ball. I'm not even a baseball player. I should have picked a different sport. And you have to hit the ball, right? So the actions you're taking are you go up and you swing the bat and you hit the ball. Now, that's one level of that experience. Imagine if before you sit an hour before you're going up to bat, you are acknowledging your confidence and how great of a batter you are, and how great your team is, and this comes easy to you, and you're strong and you're healthy and you're coordinated and you're guided, and this whole other part of your being is now in that experience. And that's the energy that goes into the action, and everything's connected. Like, coming back again to the very beginning, all the energy is connected. So action and what you think about the action you're taking are directly related, and the action you take is directly related to the results you get. And so there's all these components to the action, and we have just been so superficial in controlling and so small in only trying to manage action, when we have so much more power. We have so much more energetic or vibrational power.
Yeah, let's talk about the emotional connection, and this vibrational universe, not seeing but feeling, right? Because that's really what you're talking about, is like, that's not action. It's emotional action. I mean, it's mind body action, but it's not what we consider like doing. Yeah,
totally. Yeah. So we're all vibration, and we interpret vibration through emotion. So like, our emotions are our indicators of what vibration we have going on, if that makes sense.
What do you think in terms of, I know, like, focus, practice. So if you're new to this, or even if you're not, do you feel that this is something you make a practice every day? Does it matter? I guess there's some people that just flow through it and just naturally attract. And I do that too sometimes, but I also feel it's important to intentionally go into alignment and review these things in my feelings and also my visualizations.
Yeah. Well, the cool thing about that, so I'm sure your listeners already know this, but we are all manifesting all the time, whether we know it or not, right? The law of attraction is at work, same as the law of gravity. We don't wake up and say, I'm going to use the law of gravity today. Well, you are using.
I wish I had the choice.
Yeah. You are using the law of attraction in your life right now. You just might not be aware of it. And so one of the funnest things about being a conscious creator is you get to become aware of how you are creating your life, and make these connections between, I had this thought and this showed up. So I was just talking to a client before I hopped on here, and she was like, I was sitting in the backyard and feeling so great. And I had this thought, I'm like, oh, it would be so nice to have, wine and cheese with my husband tonight. And then he called on, he's like, oh, I'm stopping at the store. And she's like, okay, great. She didn't mention it. And he walked home walked out to the backyard with a cheese platter and wine. And she's like, wow, and so
very quick.
So she's a part of that manifestation. Now, if she didn't have the awareness of it, it would just be your husband coming home with this wonderful surprise. And like, that's great. But it's acknowledging our co-creative element with life. It's acknowledging our role, our part in how our life is showing up. That's so freaking fun, and then
or instead she could have if she wasn't aware of law of attraction and using and practicing and coaching with you that experience, and they would be like, oh, that's weird, like I was just thinking about that.
Yes,
not weird at all.
Yeah, actually that's a great one, Elle, for anyone who's just kind of getting into this, is anytime you notice like, oh, that was a coincidence, or oh, that's weird, that's the beginning to this. Like, that is your awareness. That's what's happening, is you're becoming aware of these connections that exist.
Yeah. And coincidence, actually, in the way that we think of it, is like, oh, that random or something like that. It's not. In mathematics, it's two things that go together.
Yes. It's never a coincidence. It's always in alignment on some level.
Well, sorry, go ahead.
Okay, no, you go.
No, you go first.
Okay, so the idea of focusing, when you're asking about focusing, the fun part of focus is that you feel more powerful. Like, you feel a part of your life, because you start to see, oh, I activated this energy, or I released that limiting belief, or I chose to focus on this in that way, and this showed up, and this showed up, and you start to see these pieces come together. And the pieces, I'll just say, aren't always physical manifestations first. Having a new thought is a manifestation. Having a new feeling about something is a manifestation, and that's an integral part of the manifesting path. And so acknowledging that is super, super important. So yeah, focus is great because it's fun. You get to be a part of your creations, of your manifesting.
Yeah, it feels good to be intentional and in play and part of the process. Like, hey, let's wake up and play this game. This is fun.
Yeah. Sometimes I have like the question come in from my clients, because I talk a lot too, once we get on into things about being present and a lot about the balance of allowing things to unfold and being intentional and manifesting. And so, one of the questions that often comes up is like, okay, I feel like I'm doing nothing though. Like, I'm bored, I want to focus on something so I can create it. So there's a difference. There is a balance you learn to have in terms of how much you focus intentionally, or how much you allow versus how much you are focusing and being very intentional and doing your practices and finding that perfect balance. That balance is going to change throughout your life and depending on what's going on, but knowing what kind of that sweet spot is fun.
Right. And just to throw out to the audience, for people that might be new to this as well, you can manifest clarity about a situation, right? An answer to something, be open, right, to an unknown possibility. It doesn't have to just be a thing or an experience or money or a job or something tangible like that in a way. I mean, they're both tangible, but you know what I'm saying? And I didn't mean this to be a commercial, but I do have a manifestation journal, everyone. Confidence, gratitude, and the law of attraction. It's like a 6-month journal where it goes through those 3 areas. And man, a couple of people have manifested some great stuff. I do believe in the power of writing it down, and or really then spending some time, even if you have to put an iPhone timer for 5-10 minutes, whatever it is, to really get into those feeling states. I would love to hear, because it's always so much fun to hear about manifestation stories. So I'd love to hear a couple from clients and stuff over the years, or listeners, and then also some of your favorite personal ones.
Yeah. Well, I want to share a couple that, sometimes we hear a lot of manifesting stories that they're all awesome. But I want to mention a couple that are more longer, like more transformations, because I get so passionate about that. Like, I just love helping people step into the best version of themselves. And you can see a difference in a few weeks, but you like see your life experience change in a year, 2 years, 3 years, that kind of thing. And so one of my favorites is I started working with a woman about a year and a half ago. And, she came in very, very disempowered and like feeling like a victim to her life. And one of the areas was like her marriage, and she was just kind of having those questions and those doubts, and like, we don't connect, and there's no intimacy, and when do I leave this marriage? And I'm like, all right, well, let's start by getting into alignment with you, and then we'll go from there. So fast forward a year and a half later, and it wasn't always an easy road. There's uncomfortable growth, but she is in the most connected. She said, I've never felt so close and so connected. And it just astounds her in all the time. She's in awe about how so much has changed in the marriage, and how like she did the work and didn't have to do anything to or try to change her partner. It was just that harmony was naturally created. And the coolest thing about this story is that there was other things going on in their life with their kids. And just as they were really coming together as a couple, something came up with one of their kids, and something pretty serious and important that they had to handle as parents. And they were a connected, solid, united force, being able, and I'm getting goosebumps telling it, because this, like, the universe has got this divine timing under control, and this was happening in perfect timing to be able to make the next part of life the easiest it can be, and so that's one of my favorites.
Oh, that's so much fun. And I like that too, because that is a feeling in a relationship, not a thing, not a material thing. It's an experience, right? Yeah. With someone else.
I mean, and so we have a lot of like.
I manifested friends. I mean, you can manifest.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes. A couple of years ago, I was like, I want to meet someone here, because I had just moved to Florida, and I was sitting on the beach, and there was a girl that was on her own too. And she walked over to me and said, can you take my picture? I'm like, okay, this is like random. And, I took her picture anyways. We sat there talking, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm making friends just that easy.
Right. I love it. I love it. What's one of your favorite personal ones? So many, it's how you live your life, but what's a juicy one that sometimes you're like, oh man, that was good.
I think I've already mentioned this one on your show, but meeting my wife was the best.
Oh yes, absolutely.
Well, I mean, it has, there's certain elements to manifesting, like the unexpected part that really tells you, it's in your best interest. And it usually always happens when we're not expecting it, or not usually always, but it's a good sign that you've manifested something when you weren't, like, from a place of alignment, when you weren't expecting it. And the reason, so that's what happened with my wife. I was not looking for a relationship. I had one of the biggest things that I find personally, in my opinion, that we experience as an individual growth before we find our person is this kind of surrender to, I'm going to be totally happy if I never find my person, and if I live my life alone, I'm going to love my life. I'm amazing. My life is going to be amazing. And so that happened, as well as this other big part of opening and vulnerability within myself, of really owning this part of myself that I hadn't shared with anyone before. And then I met her. And so then we connected. And so that was all kind of in the same area and time frame. And it was just it was that perfect balance that we were talking about, in terms of trying and being intentional and allowing it to unfold. So that's one of my favorites, because it's just such an important part of my life. I love love.
Well, and you mentioned something in there that's really important for everyone, and I feel like I'm on a repeat with it, which is you have to enjoy your own company.
Yeah.
Especially if you are looking for someone, but just in general, right? Yeah. If you don't enjoy your own company, then it says something, right? There's an unsettlingness in yourself, or if you feel like you always have to be out or stimulated by other things. It's not to say that you love quarantine for 10 years either, but it's just, right. But I remember when quarantine hit and I thought, oh, I'm good. Right. I think you too. I think we joked around like, oh, when you find out it's kind of like your preferred state or whatever. No. But just joking around about it. But still, that's the truth, is that if you can't find peace with yourself and enjoyment in the alone time, right? And that's probably going to make you more restless with LOA and not maybe as much of a confident manifester. Yeah. Enjoy one's own company. Get to love yourself.
Yeah. And it's so much, I mean, that term is so, I think sometimes overused, like love yourself. It's really about, accept yourself wholly and fully, because your experience with a partner is directly related to your own experience with yourself. So if you don't have that sense of peace and harmony and connection and depth of connection and respect for yourself and honoring of yourself, you will never find it from another person. You might experience it temporarily or on and off, but it will never be everything you're looking for.
What are some other fun stories and things over the years from clients or friends? I love hearing those stories.
Well, another one of my favorite stories is I was working with a woman, and she's in our tribe, and our Live Your Truth tribe. And she really wanted, she didn't have a lot of clarity about what she wanted. And so we started just like we did. Like, she wanted some change in her career, but really unclear about what that was. And so we started really general with the freedom part. And so focusing and aligning with that freedom for a few months. And then she manifested a change in her current job that went down to a couple days a week doing something a little different. And they just offered it to her. She didn't know it existed. So that she was only working 2 days a week. And she's like, amazing, good. This is a great step. And then we did an abundance module, again, freedom. And she manifested out of the blue, and it came from a few different sources, but her and her husband paid off her mortgage. And so it's like, oh, amazing, more freedom, more space, right? And then about another 6 months later, again, still letting this, I'm highlighting this because the total experience is a process of unfolding. And it's like little bit by little bit. And then the clarity that came for her career was actually ended up being through a number of just little things, opening up to a coaching course, and how much that lit her up. And that's going to be a part of what she does moving forward. And so that was just really exciting.
Love that.
Yeah. And another one of my favorites is one of my actor clients. And when I started working with her, the dream was to get a reoccurring role. Wait, I don't even know if I can say this right.
Recurring role. Yeah.
Yes. Recurring role in a TV series. And it was about a year and a half later, possibly 2 years and a half to 2 years later. And a few, I won't go into everything, but she landed her dream role, and she was walking down the street, and she got the call from her agent. Is it agent, Elle, or manager?
Yeah, agent, or either one or both. Yeah.
Okay. And she was just like in shock. It was unexpected, but the joy, the fulfillment of that feeling of like, I did it. This is my dream, and it happened. And so it's like, okay, now what?
That's a fun one. God, that reminds me of one, and I don't know if I've ever told it, but I was on I had to go to the Paramount lot for an audition, which is always fun when you get to go to a studio, but particularly that one, because it's like the Lucille Ball, so like it's the old school, it's beautiful architecture, it's just really cool. And so I was just in the vibe. In fact, I was listening to Abraham, who did on the way there, who did a great sort of rampage of appreciation on an actor who had said, I'm looking for a breakthrough. And so I just like to listen to it because it puts me in a good mood on the way to auditions. And so now they're virtual, but anyway, so I go into Paramount, and I'm just sort of like enjoying, I was early, as I always am. And I'm sort of like strolling to where I need to go. I'm looking at the map, and there's like, it's far distances between places. And this guy, I go to the audition, and afterwards, a guy came by in a golf cart. Like there's all sorts of workers and people in golf carts and stuff taking around actors or just, construction guys. And this guy pulled up, he goes, "Hey, do you need a ride back to the lot or do you need somewhere to go?" And I was like, "Sure." And I get in, we're chatting a bit. And he's like, "You know what? You have a great vibe. You know, it's weird. There's a producer on this lot who said, if I ever met anyone that seemed really, really cool," because I guess I told him I was a sketch comedy writer too. And he goes, and then he like gave me the guy's card and was like, "Tell him so-and-so sent you." And I was like, "What?" So I basically, I think I called, anyway, long story short, I had a meeting with the guy. He ended up like hiring me to write a treatment for a show. And again, there's a million treatments out there. You didn't see it. It didn't get made, but again, a wonderful experience, a great thing on my resume. And also just, it was cool. Just the whole experience. So I went there for an acting role, but I got a writing, which I'm not complaining about not getting the acting role, but also just so fun how just a random conversation with this fun guy, and then how he'd worked there for like 40 years. The guy was like a lifer, he had been there forever. You could tell he knew the whole lot. He was just like one of the old pros that were there. And, he's like, some guy get like the fact that he decided to pull it out that day to me, I'm sure he'd offered lots of actresses and people rides across the lot. You know what I'm saying? So it was just really fun, but I love that. I love that so much. And I love that she got her role. I
have to comment on that story because it's so amazing. And so it's the energy you were in that allowed you to line up with that process, right? So that's what's so important, is just trusting the energy we're in. So you were open to receive, you were in a great vibe, you didn't have any, very strict or limiting ideas of what was right for you or how this day should go, very open. And that's how we line up with those things that are the next best step. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was just, it was such a I was in appreciation just to even be there, to have the opportunity to be able to play in the game, and just, that's all positive, fun vibes. Like at that point, it didn't matter whether I got the audition or anything else happened. It was just great. But something else came along, and those are the kind of things sometimes you get a little left turn from something that you were on the road for. But that left turn is like, ooh.
Yeah. There's always value in everything that we experience.
Yeah. But first of all, everyone can get Ginny Gane's book, Champion Mindset, on Amazon. But tell us about LOA Skills Camp and the other things you offer, as well as private coaching, and how we can benefit more from your expertise and get in this manifesting game.
Yeah. Well, my most powerful program and the way I help people is LOA Skills Camp. And it's an 8-week coaching course. And we get to connect every week, and it's very intimate, and we really, get to know each other. And I think one of the most powerful things that women say as they kind of come out of that is just, having the experience of what alignment feels like, and they feel in their power. But that's the biggest thing, is just like, oh, this is how it works. Like, I get it now. So most people are like, I kind of have an idea of manifesting, but I don't really feel clear about what's going on or how to really leverage it to get what I want. And then that's what happens in those 8 weeks. And moving beyond that, I do have more support, and we can get there when you get there. And I do have one-on-one coaching as well. But it is just I want people to thrive, and I want them to know they have the power to be, I'm going to use an Abraham thing, be, do, or have anything they want. There's no limitations. Like, our only limitations come from what we've been conditioned. And it's so fun to break through those. And it's so fun to feel our power to create and to watch your dreams come true. And just honestly, to feel like you're living the life that you're meant to, and you're living your life. And that's what's so exciting for me, to be able to connect with women like that.
I love it so much. So GinnyGane.com. Again, that's GINNYGANE.com. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and good vibes with us. And you always inspire me. And I love listening to you. And actually, I've coached with you myself. I reach out to you a couple of times, and that's because coaches need coaches, yo. And sometimes you need that other perspective. And we know that as coaches. That's why we do this. Yeah. It's so fun. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Elle. I love the co-creative element of it, and just getting to share and being inspired by each other and our listeners. So yay.
Love it. All right, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you next week. Hey listeners, over the years a ton of companies have approached me to collaborate, but I will only promote companies whose products I believe in and that I actually use and consume on a regular basis. So let me tell you about some of my favorite companies that I can offer you discounts for. Rep Provisions, an amazing company doing incredible things for our planet, topsoil, and animals with regenerative agriculture, and it's my #1 source for quality pasture-raised meat and chicken. Visit repprovisions.com and use code L15 for 15% off. I'm also obsessed with a company called Carnivore Crisps. They make a lean, all-natural, and delicious alternative to conventional snacking, made with just real meat and real salt. Totally addictive, and my favorite ones are the beef brisket and the ribeye. Visit carnivorecrisps.com and use code PALEO10 for 10% off. I also love and regularly use Paleo Valley products. They make amazing supplements and delicious paleo products. I use the superfood greens powder, grass-fed beef sticks, the organ complex, and their bone broth bars. I love the lemon and apple. I also use their essential C complex and more. Visit paleovalley.com/promos/Elle Russ for 15% off. I also love Primal Kitchen. They make delicious paleo-approved, gluten-free, grain-free, soy-free, and no refined sugar products, and I use them daily, from their collagen powders and sauces and marinades to their avocado and olive oil. So good, so healthy. Visit primalkitchen.com and use code L10 for 10% off. I also love paleo powder and use it almost on everything I cook. They make incredible seasoning blends, and they also have these incredible grain-free coatings that feel just like crispy breadings that you would have had prior to knowing that there's another way. So visit paleopowder.com and use code L15 for 15% off.